1992. 6 months later, Courtney gave birth to their daughter, Frances Bean. Kurt and Courtney's relationship was constantly tested to the limit, with Courtney often having to deal with the consequences of Kurt's drug addiction, depression, suicide attempts and periods in drug rehab. By 1991, a huge buzz had built up around the band, and after a massive record company bidding war, Nirvana signed with Geffen Records. With this, for the first time, came money, a new experience for the band, and for Kurt particularly, this meant access to any drugs he desired. Nirvana were ensconced in Sound City Studios in LA to record what would become one of the most important albums ever made. There are only a handful of albums over the last 50 years that have really changed music. Nevermind was to become one of them.
Even by major label standards, it was done fairly quickly. And even on Nevermind, from what I understand, Kurt probably didn't do more than 1 or 2 takes on any of the vocals. What I think it came down to, I think Butch Vig was a little more meticulous about drum sounds, about layering, about, he had a chance to see the band rehearse beforehand. He had demos. They basically spent more time on it and were more meticulous about the technical aspects of it. I think performance-wise, the band probably didn't do anything terribly different in the studio from how they did Bleach. It's just they were a better band at that point, and they didn't have to do a whole album in 3 days. They had a couple of weeks. And again, it's the fact that the songwriting was strong that makes it work like that. It didn't need a lot of extra bullshit added to it. So again, Butch just captured what they were about at the time, and same way Albini did later for the 3rd record. They literally recorded it live, and he did the vocals over, and it was almost the same way we recorded Bleach. Just, Albini's aesthetic is a little different from mine, but he essentially did the same kind of job that I was trying to do on Bleach, which was just, okay, this is the band wants me to just capture what they're doing because they're so good at what they're doing, they don't need a lot of production. That's the funny thing about Nirvana. They were very good at what they were doing. Nobody really could produce them.
The timing of Nevermind's release could not have been better. The first single, Smells Like Teen Spirit, and its accompanying video were virtually on continual loop at MTV and radio stations across the world. The album was a critical and commercial smash, breaking records around the world and propelling Nirvana to the top of both the rock and pop worlds.
By January of '92, his record was #1 and he was a huge star. So things changed almost overnight, but I don't think anyone could have predicted the level of success they had. And in some ways, I don't think they even wanted that much success. They wanted to be the biggest band in the world, but they really didn't want the pressures, the demands that came with that. And so I think it surprised everybody. It surprised Kurt as much as anybody else.
There's this danger of revisionist talk where people claim that they always knew. But if you go back to like the Rolling Stone review that when Rolling Stone reviewed Nevermind the first time, they called it basically a mediocre record. You read Rolling Stone now and they basically pretend that they always knew that Nirvana was the most brilliant thing on the planet. After that Nirvana left on tour to support Nevermind in 1991 with plans. Kurt talked about I'm going to take, after this tour, support this record, I'm going to take the money that I got and build a studio in Olympia. And he, even had a building that he wanted to rent. And then they just kept extending the tour, and they basically never came back. Kurt, as a matter of fact, his landlord evicted him for not coming back. He didn't pay his rent, he didn't move his stuff out, and as I understand it, his landlord just threw his stuff out onto the street.
Having relentlessly toured and promoted Nevermind, in February 1993,